Howdy folks, and welcome back to Jurassic World Evolution with the mighty Jingles. In our previous episode, we managed to complete the second of the three available missions on Isla Muerte with only minimal and acceptable loss of visitor life and limb. We're completely done with Isaac the Arsehole from the Entertainment Division, but before we move on to smooching with George from the Security Division, there's just one final unlock from Dr. Dewar's Science Division that we need to get under our belt before we can move on. We are really close. It's only going to take one more science contract to nail that final unlock. And as it happens, we have a science contract. They want us to release 4 dinosaurs. Well, if I want a 5-star park rating, and I do want a 5-star park rating, I'm going to have to release more dinosaurs anyway. And it just so happens that I have a pair of Dilophosaurs that I prepared earlier. Dilophosaurs are nasty little buggers. They're not as nasty as Velociraptors. And they don't have the same star rating as Velociraptors, but they do have one advantage over the Velociraptors. As far as improving your dinosaur rating is concerned, you can pack a lot more of them in. They don't really mind sharing their territory with a big group of other Dilophosaurs, whereas the Velociraptors, well, they're fussy. We've got another one ready that we can release. So that's 2 of 4 for the Science Division, and releasing more dinosaurs is also boosting my dinosaur rating, which, is currently at 3.6 stars and just climbed to 3.9, which is quite handy because I also have a mission from the Security Division to boost the overall park dinosaur rating up to 4 stars. So we're 0.1 stars away from completing that mission as well. The problem right now is that I'm kind of running out of space. Well, actually I'm not. There is a lot more space that I could be using, I just haven't exploited it yet. So we're going to knock down a couple of sections of monorail and get ourselves some track built through this choke point down to the far southern end of Isla Muerte, where there's all kinds of space available for new dinosaur enclosures. A couple of $1 million later, we've got new monorail track laid, we have a new power station, a new Hammond Creation Lab, new fences, viewing enclosures for the guests that are going to come flooding in. We just need to get everything connected to the power grid, and we're pretty much ready to start incubating more dinosaur eggs. Now, as it happens, we picked up another contract from Georgie Boy in the Security Division to release a Velociraptor into the park with the immune response genetic modification. What I'm not going to do, however, is introduce this new modified Velociraptor into the new enclosure that I've just constructed. So that's not going to do a huge amount for the dinosaur's variety rating, and I need to get a 5-star dinosaur rating in order to 5-star the park. I can release a modified Velociraptor into my original carnivore enclosure, but what I can't do in my original herbivore enclosure is introduce more dinosaurs, even if they are different species. And I do want to introduce new species because I need to get that variety rating up. The problem with the original herbivore enclosure is that some of the species of dinosaur that are in there are already at the population limit, so I can't really introduce anything new into the first herbivore enclosure. So this brand new enclosure is going to be all about the herbivores. I've got multiple herbivore species that I just haven't been able to introduce into the park yet due to overpopulation in the first herbivore enclosure. So that's what I'm going to be doing down here to the south, and I can always introduce one genetically modified Velociraptor with the immune response modification into the existing carnivore enclosure. And hopefully this should mean all 3 current contracts will be completed at the same time. We'll get a dinosaur rating of 4 stars, that'll keep George happy. He'll have his modified Velociraptor, that'll make him even more happy, and we will have released 4 new dinosaurs into the park, which should finally shut Dr. Dewar up and persuade her to give me her last unlock. And so before too long, the Corythosaurs are ready to release. And as luck would have it, right on time, there's also a storm incoming. Well, let's get these 2 into the park. I can't release the other one just yet. The first one's still clearing the enclosure. Alright, let's get to the storm shelters and get the plebs safely locked underground. Ladies and gentlemen, dames und herren, get your ass indoors.
With this animal, the Corythosaurus, you can really see chaos in action. Think of all the combinations and patterns that life tries out, looking for that perfect structure. It's not about success. Life is about refining failure over and over and over again. Always a work in progress, ourselves included.
Well, good news, bad news. The science contract's complete. That's 4 new dinosaurs released into the park.
One out of the park.
So there's the final science unlock. Dig yield at the Expedition Centre. So now every time I send a dig team out, they're coming back with more fossils than before. The bad news is 2 Corythosaurs aren't enough. It's not terrible news, however. I don't have to tranquilise them to keep them calm. They're fairly docile herbivores. They can stand a fair amount of population discomfort, give me plenty of time to incubate a 3rd egg and get a 3rd Corythosaur in the same enclosure to keep them all happy. And here's Corythosaurus number 3. And just in time too. The other 2 are starting to get a little bit upset. But with the introduction of a 3rd member of the family, they should all calm down nicely. Corythosaurus is a hadrosaur, also known as duck-billed dinosaurs. And if you can't figure out why, well, you're just not ready for such an advanced level of dinosaur knowledge. Okay, come on. Let's see that population bar go up. There we go. Fantastic. So they're all happy. I should probably breed another one, just to be on the safe side, just in case something happens to one of them, but it's not an emergency. Disappointingly though, I'm still hovering around a 3.9 dinosaur rating rather than the 4.0 I was hoping for, which would have completed one of the security contracts. So, what are we going to do about that? Well, I could go ahead and incubate that genetically modified Velociraptor that George keeps going on about, but completing the entertainment division contracts in the previous video also unlocked access to dig sites with Styracosaurus fossils, and I've got plenty of space for new herbivores. Now, I only have 50% of the Styracosaur genome, so it's only just viable, but with the upgrades that I have in place in this Hammond Creation Lab, I get a 60% boost to the viability of any eggs that I incubate, so 50% is actually more than enough. And introducing an entirely new species into the park rather than just another Velociraptor is going to do far more for my dinosaur rating than just another Velociraptor. Regardless of how much I may or may not have messed around with its genetic code in order to make it all fancy. Then again, I don't actually have to choose between the 2. I can do the Velociraptor as well. Just have to make sure I give it the immune response modification to keep George off my back. And now let's see, how far can we actually tinker with it? How far can we lower the viability in order to boost the rating? As it turns out, not quite as much as I'd like. There are still 2 genetic markers that we haven't identified yet because I don't have 100% of the Velociraptor genome. So a star rating of 96 is about as high as I can take it. Still, it'll do. How are those 2 Styracosaurs doing? Let's take a look. Oh wow, this is going to take some time. That could be a problem actually, because I've never introduced a Styracosaur into the park before. I don't know how big a social group it requires. If it needs 3, well, it takes a long time to incubate a Styracosaur egg. Plenty of time for the other 2 to lose their temper and start tearing the fences down. Oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. I mean, what damage can a pair of very angry 15-ton herbivores possibly do? Actually, yeah, when I say it out loud like that, it's it'll be fine. I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. Please be fine. Please don't go horribly wrong. Those horns look really sharp. But with a new breed of dinosaur released into the park, that should be a dinosaur rating of 4 stars.
I wasn't entirely sure about this one, but you proved me wrong.
Yes, George? I did, didn't I? You're welcome. Don't mention it.
What you have there is a Styracosaurus, or spiked lizard. The reason for the name should be obvious.
Don't make me come over there, Finch. I'm the one who makes the crap jokes around here. And as it turns out, 2 Styracosaurs is absolutely fine. I told you there was nothing to worry about. Now, let's see about getting some of those security unlocks. Our genetically modified Velociraptor is ready for release. And there she is. Now, is this going to be enough to get me my first security unlock? Because I've been doing quite well for the security division lately. Come on, George. Tell me how great I
You
am.
got a knack for solving problems. That's a valuable skill, especially around here.
And there it is. Dig speed upgrade at the Expedition
It
Center.
takes a special kind of person to do this job and do it well. The security division is rewarding you because on Isla Muerta, you are clearly that person.
Well, you know, I don't like to toot my own horn, George. But it was very kind of you to say so. And here is the Isla Muerte security mission. Survival of the fittest.
I've got a unique and challenging opportunity. Be warned though, this one may get a little rough.
Uh-huh.
But then no one said this job was always going to be pretty, right?
Uh-huh. The reward for completing this mission is the electrified heavy steel fence. And I really want the electrified heavy steel fence.
Up for the challenge, I see. Good. This task is going to test your skills and your will. See, we're setting up a situation in which we will have dinosaurs in competition. Kinetic action, like it happens in nature. Survival of the fittest.
Okay.
Step 1. Construct or modify an enclosure so that it's capable of supporting dinosaur combat. You'll need to incubate, hatch, and house dinosaurs within this enclosure.
Are we crossing a line here? Because it feels like we're crossing a line, creating the conditions for these animals to engage one another? To use their primal, instinctual drive to hunt and kill as a testing ground for what exactly?
That's an excellent question, Jeff Goldblum. Stick around, I'm sure we're going to find out. Now, there is one major practical problem associated with getting this survival of the fittest mission complete for the security division. I have to incubate, release, and enclose together one Dilophosaur and one Velociraptor. Now, these are both small carnivores, so they are going to go for each other. Then again, isn't that the point? You do want them to fight each other. Well, yes, I want them to fight each other. It has to be these two specific dinosaurs, so I can't just dump these two into the existing Velociraptor enclosure, because any one of the Velociraptors could be the one that kills it. So in order to make sure that this mission goes off without any problems, I'm going to have to construct some modifications to the second carnivore enclosure. So what I've done is I've built a sort of enclosure within the enclosure, shutting off access to the Hammond Creation Lab, so the next things that I release from that lab don't get interrupted by this Metriocanthosaurus, for example, or any of the multitude of other Velociraptors that are running around the inside of this enclosure. Anyway, let's get these two released, and then see exactly what it is that Georgie Boy wants us to do next. I suspect that there may be some graphic violence involved. In fact, the violence may be so extreme that I may have to insist that anybody under the age of 12 leave the room immediately. Yeah. It's amazing what children are actually allowed to watch these days. I actually raised this in an episode of Mingles with Jingles a while back. In 1986, when Aliens was released in the cinemas, it had an 18 certificate here in the UK. You couldn't get in to see it. Well, you weren't supposed to be able to get in to see it unless you were aged 18. I sneaked in when I was 16, because it was awesome. These days, that movie has a 15 certificate. These days, that kind of graphic violence is just nothing special. In fact, I've got a story about that. But first, time for an important message from our sponsors.
And this is what we've been working toward. Time to let them fight. Let's make sure we're all on a forward posture from this point on.
Okay, my people are in place to observe this interaction.
I think you mean slaughter?
You believe in nature, don't you, Dr. Malcolm? We are simply enabling it.
No, you're manipulating it, and the outcome of your actions cannot be known.
I thought you liked the unknown, Dr. Malcolm. Proceed with the test.
Dilophosaurs are nasty little buggers, but my money's on the raptor.
Dr. Wu's observers need to study the victor. Let's keep him safe.
Oh, I'm glad I wasn't here to witness what happened. There was blood, wasn't there? Claws and teeth and roaring aren't really my thing.
En route to pick up the asset.
Phase 1 complete.
We'll definitely put those extra funds you earned on that contract to good use. The security division is all that stands between our animals and catastrophe. Good to know we have the resources to stay vigilant.
Now, to complete the second phase of this mission, all you have to do is simply ensure that the victorious raptor remains safely contained within a secure enclosure for 5 minutes. Unfortunately, for no apparent reason, every now and then, this raptor is going to go berserk. So you need to be careful and have the asset containment unit on standby, ready to trank the shit out of the little bastard before she hammers the fence down and runs amok amongst all of the mobile Happy Meals. And remember, she's not the only Velociraptor in this enclosure. There she goes. She's going for the fence. If she busts that fence down, the other raptors are going to make a break for it as well. And you can't rely on the mobile Happy Meals having the sense, while the raptor is trying to bust through the fence, to do anything other than stand in front of the fence with their back to the raptor, taking selfies of the raptor that is busy tearing the fence down and turning them into a bag meal. Because they're all idiots. So it's probably a good idea, for the duration of this experiment, if you were to get everybody into the emergency shelters. But I'm feeling lucky. We're going to see how far we can take it. Now, while this experiment is running to its conclusion, the subject that I broached just a few minutes ago, about the level of violence that's considered acceptable for children on television and in the movies these days. You see, recently I've been watching a lot of new TV shows and movies on Netflix and Amazon Prime. With the seasonal summer internet issues that I always seem to get every year, playing any kind of multiplayer game has been difficult. And so I've spent a lot of time over the course of the last 2 weeks watching new TV shows and movies, and one new show that I came across is called Final Space. Now, the title's a bit crap, but it's a hilarious science fiction cartoon show. If you're a fan of Rick and Morty, you'll probably love Final Space, but it is shockingly and gratuitously violent, in exactly the same way as Rick and Morty. Now, I love it, I think it's hilarious, but then again, I'm kind of sick and twisted. Also, I'm 48 years old.
Let's not argue over the small.
Children as young as 12 are allowed to watch this. Just in the intro, there's a guy ripping another guy in two, with his blood and intestines dangling out of his stump, as the first guy's son looks on admiringly. Oh, wow. Oh, look. Reputation contract complete. Another reputation reward. Medium power station. Fantastic. Things are coming along quite nicely. We don't actually have an awful lot left to do on this island. Just over a minute to go before this experiment is complete, and... oh, bugger.
Exit confirmed.
You know, in retrospect, I really should have put all the guests into the shelters before conducting this experiment. No, it'll be fine. No, seriously, it will be fine. You see, any guests that book the vacation of a lifetime at Jingles Dinosaur Park have to pay their bill in full on arrival. And I do take a $500 deposit in the event of any unforeseen additional expenses. So it will be fine. It doesn't... Well, I'll be fine. I can take all those $500 deposits, which they're not going to claim back because they're dead. Use it to repair the fence. I told you it was all going to be fine. You see, trust your Uncle Jingles. He thinks of everything. Yeah, unfortunately, that bloody raptor is now outside the enclosure. So the experiment's on hold until I get it tranked and back where it belongs. Unfortunately, it turns out that if you are forced to tranquilize a mission-critical Velociraptor, and that Velociraptor has come from an enclosure that also contains a Metriocanthosaurus that isn't too particular about where it finds its meals, let's just say that Metriocanthosaurus is not above taking a bite out of the arse of any drugged Velociraptor that it happens to find lying tranquilized at the side of the road. So my Metriocanthosaurus has just eaten my Velociraptor. Oops. Oh well, Seconds out, round 2. Do the whole thing again, this time with the guests in the emergency shelters, and mission complete. George? George, there he is. Mission complete.
Well, it wasn't pretty to look at, but it appears Dr. Wu and his scientists have the data they were after. So, well done. And be thankful we don't have to clean up that mess. Lambert out.
I don't understand what they're doing in the facilities. They certainly have enough data from the past, anomalous events on the islands to assess how the dinosaurs engage and kill one another and us. No, there's another agenda in play.
Yeah, shut up, Jeff Goldblum.
You never let your foot off the gas.
I'm busy
until that
currying
contract
favour with
crossed the
George
finish
here.
line.
And that should be the final reputation reward for the security division here on Isla Muerte. Fallen Kingdom fossil access. I just have to research it first. There it is. This is for the baryonyx. As you can see from the picture, it's a reasonably large and very, very nasty carnivore. And as soon as I've got this researched, I'll have access to their fossils, and I can start putting them in the park. So that's all of the missions complete, and all of the unlocks for all 3 of the corporate divisions. All I have to do now, well, I don't have to. You get 3 stars on Isla Muerte, it unlocks the access to the next island, Isla de Caño. But with a 5-star rating here on Isla Muerte, I get access to a second fossil dig team, so I can bring the fossils in and unlock new dinosaurs twice as quickly. Now my park facility rating is at 5 stars, my park dinosaur rating is over 4.5 stars, so all I have to do is introduce just a couple more dinosaurs. And that should be enough to tip the balance. And there it is.
We are the point around which this whole operation turns. Having a high dino rating is essential to our mission. Well done.
Now I already had a facility rating of 5 stars, and I've just achieved a dino rating of 5 stars, which means that the overall island rating is now 5 stars as well, and that means mission complete.
I think you've found all that you can on Isla Muerta.
You know, Jeff Goldblum, I do think you're right. Which means it's high time we move on to the next island, Isla de Caño, where the challenges are going to be, well, kind of more of the same really, except a lot more extreme. If you think the storms here at Isla Muerta were bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. All that to come in a future episode. In the meantime, as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.